native land. True patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true North strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Heather, you ready? See. Perfect. Heather. Telegram. Right. Face. Forward. Up.
Will the audience please be seated? Rorn detachment.
As we're watching the memorial service for McCartney, Deputy McCartney, we are joined by Lieutenant Robert Getz from the Everett Police Department, who's also with the Behind the Badge Foundation, who's here to just tell us what we are watching and the significance of this symbolism. So tell us what is happening right now.
So up next in the ceremony will be the posting of the streamer for Deputy McCartney. That's symbolic of all fallen law enforcement officers. The streamer itself is placed typically on the department flag, which is posted very prominently within the agency's headquarters.
This is his detachment now that's filing onto the stage.
Correct, and that's usually who does the posting of the streamer, are his detachment or the crew that he or she worked with.
Mountain Detachment from Pierce County.
Yeah. So we're going to see a blend of tradition and also some lighter moments, I would guess, as we've seen in the past. It sort of blends a traditional funeral with a
Very personal touch.
Yeah, very personal touch. That's important, isn't it? We're going to see probably, I think, 6 scheduled speakers.
That's right, and the memorial services are generally broken down into 3 sections. The opening ceremonial part that we're observing now will move into the speakers or the memorial portion of the memorial, and then finally closing, which is also a very ceremonial nature.
You said you were not surprised at all to see that Olson Auditorium is packed with officers and their spouses, family members.
Not at all. It's all of us are touched when there is a fallen officer, and we all want to give back.
So this is a streamer?
It is. And you'll note it being posted alongside the other streamers for the fallen deputies from Pierce County.
So those are the men and women who worked with Deputy McCartney day in and day out. Hard to imagine being in their shoes on a day like this.
This is a very, very tough day for them.
Some of you at home might be wondering why we have not shown the family. They've asked for privacy. They have 3 young boys, 4, 6, and 9, and we want to honor that for the family members. They've been married for 13 years, his wife Cierra and Deputy McCartney, and their 3 little boys. They're just so small, and they've asked for privacy from the very beginning of this tragedy, and we're going to honor that through this service as well.
Lieutenant Getz, you've served as the liaison, the person appointed to serve these families in times like this. What's the biggest thing that they need during this time? What's the biggest thing that you have provided these families?
Well, there's a number of things, but I would say there's really 2. Knowing that there's somebody there, I think, is probably the most important thing from an emotional perspective. Someone to lean on, someone to ask questions of. And the second is exactly that, someone to provide answers, somebody to who can fulfill their requests and let them know what to expect over the next week. The honor guards will all retreat from the venue, and then we'll get into the memorial portion of the service where we'll have our speakers.
As we've seen other memorial services, what's happening right now at the Pierce County Sheriff's Office? Do other agencies fill in and patrol, or what happens?
They do. Last night at about 9 o'clock, agencies from around the Tri-County area, Pierce, King, and Snohomish County, along with other agencies, I'm sure, from further south, have volunteered to take the shifts of the deputies who've been working since 9 last night, and will continue through until tomorrow morning.
It was just so interesting reading the obituary that was in the Tribune about Daniel from his family, about how even as a child he had this desire to seek justice, how he was a Boy Scout, enlisted in the Navy, 2002 was stationed aboard the Abraham Lincoln for years. He served in Hoquiam as a police officer before he was here at Pierce County. A life of service, wanting to serve his community as a police officer, and then very, very involved in his community at Yelm as a CrossFit instructor, just beloved in his community.
I would like to call
So
Daniel Gardner
it's not a
to the
surprise
stage,
that
please.
all of these people would gather to
Daniel
honor
Gardner
him.
is Deputy Daniel McCartney's brother-in-law, and he'll be doing our invocation today.
I want to thank you all for coming today. As you sit here today, there's going to be a lot of wonderful things that you're going to hear about my brother-in-law. But I'd like to start off by telling you about Daniel's number one focal point that set the tone for everything he valued, including his marriage, being a father, a friend, and also a deputy. That one thing is his relationship with God. It wasn't a religion. It was a personal, intimate relationship with his Creator. Daniel understood the reality of good and evil in this world, and he focused his life and the life of his family on recognizing the difference. This is why Daniel was so passionate about his job. He wanted to make a difference in the lives of people, and make a difference he did. Daniel had a good grasp and personally experienced the love and forgiveness of God. He was passionate about it. As you will hear from others today, Daniel showed God's love and forgiveness on duty and off. Please listen to me as I finish this last statement. If Daniel were standing here today, he would say to all of us, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or what you have done. God loves you, and He offers forgiveness and life after this life to all who come to Him. Would you please bow your heads with me in prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity to gather together and celebrate the life of Daniel. I pray your blessing over this time as we gather together to recount the priceless memories of Daniel and to honor a life well lived. May we all leave this place today with a better understanding of how much you love us. In Jesus' name, amen.
On behalf of Sheriff Paul Pastor and the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, I welcome you to Olson Auditorium on the campus of Pacific Lutheran University for the memorial service for Deputy Daniel McCartney. Would also like to give special thanks and recognition to Chief Jeff Myers and the Hoquiam Police Department for their presence here today. To begin, I would like to call Sheriff Paul Pastor from the Pierce County Sheriff's Department to the stage, please, for remarks.
First word I have to say today is welcome, even though I wish I were not welcoming you here. I want to express appreciation to people who have joined us, to Governor Inslee. I want to express appreciation to County Executive Dahlmeyer. I want to recognize the presence of a friend and a man I respect tremendously, John Batiste, Chief of the State Patrol. I want to acknowledge the presence of our State Attorney General, other elected officials, including members of our legislative and judicial branches. They are here present with us and for us today, and their presence means something to me and to the rest of us. I would like to thank Pacific Lutheran University for their tremendous generosity, Behind the Badge for their tremendous work with the family. I would also like to thank the soup ladies for feeding us over this last week. They do wonderful work. We're here today to honor, and we're here to remember, and we're here to mourn. We're here to honor one of our own, Deputy Daniel McCartney. Again, I thank all of you for being here, agencies from the county, from the state, from around the region, and our brothers and sisters from Canada. Thank you for being here. Your presence here does honor to Daniel and to his family and to the men and women of the Pierce County Sheriff's Department and the Hoquiam Police Department. You know, when I ask our people what they like the most about the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, their answer is almost always the same. Our people say that they most like the quality, the strength, and the character of the people they work beside. We're here today because one of those good people has been taken away. Today, one less person of strength and character stands beside us, and we're weaker for that loss of that deeply good man. Cierra, I don't have the right words for you today, or for Tytus or Tate or Traxton. I don't have the words for your loss, for your sadness. There are no adequate words for you or for the rest of Dan's family. I can only say that we know your hearts are broken. And I know that Daniel was serious about an ethic of service. He stepped forward to answer not a job offer, but a calling as a law enforcement officer. He did so for the community, for his brothers and sisters in Hoquiam, and for his brothers and sisters here in Pierce County and the Pierce County community. It's not just that he stepped forward and put on a badge, it's how he wore the badge. It is with honor and respect that he wore it. It is with the values and ethics he carried on to duty as he wore it. It's said in the book of Proverbs that the wicked flee where no man pursueth, but the righteous stand bold as a lion. And so Daniel stood, because he was a righteous man. I know this is a heavy title to bear, but I truly believe that it applies. The prophet Micah in 800 BC had something to say about what it means to be righteous, and he said that it involves doing justice, loving mercy, and walking humbly with your God. By all of these measures, we can confirm the righteousness of Daniel McCartney. He lost his life striving to protect the lives of others. He responded bravely and at risk to himself. He was true to the calling that he chose. We mourn him and we remember him. Those of us who had the privilege of serving with Daniel will remember his name and his heart and the good he brought to the departments and to the communities he served. But I believe the community also needs to remember this day and to remember Daniel McCartney. I want the community to look at this ceremony and remember it. Look to the people in this room. Look at the number of people wearing badges. Look at the men and women here wearing badges. Men and women who put themselves at risk to protect you and your family. They do so without stopping to consider who you are or why you ask. They're willing to respond to everyone, every hour of every day. These are people who risk their lives so that you and all that you hold dear may be safe and secure. Look at these people. Look at these people and remember that they're willing to do for you what they're willing to do for you, and the high price that they could pay as a result. Look at these people and know that even after the loss of one of their own, they will continue with the mission. They will not fear to do their duty. They will not hesitate to do the difficult and complex and too often dangerous work that they've chosen to do. This is the essence of the oath we take. This is the best of who and what we are. It's the best of who and what America is. This is what Daniel McCartney believed and stood for. And in the coming years, when we revisit today's hard memories and sadness and we count all that we've lost, we can be strengthened when we remember Daniel's beliefs, his courage, and his spirit of service. This is what all of us and what everyone in the community needs to remember, that there are deeply good, strong, righteous people like Daniel McCartney who put themselves at risk for you daily. And even in the face of great loss, like we have today, they will continue to be there for you when you call them. For this fact and for the life of Daniel McCartney, we should each of us be prayerfully grateful. Thank you.
Giving the eulogy today is Daniel's aunt, Judy Mirsky.
Daniel Alexander McCartney was born on December 15, 1983, and grew up in Loyalton, California. He was innately socially minded and had heart for justice and service to mankind. Daniel had a natural inclination to community service. He participated in Boy Scouts and was passionately competitive in baseball, basketball, football throughout high school. As many of you know, his competitive nature was always targeted at himself. He always strove to be better, more proficient, and always set the bar higher. This served to better those around him if they were paying attention. His kind and gentle soul was always available to anyone who showed interest. Upon completion of high school, at the age of 18, a concentrated research of options for the next phase of life led Daniel to join the Navy. He wanted the opportunity to learn at a challenging level of technology and travel the world. He served as a satellite communications officer, or TEC, which involves strategy and movement of military operations around the world. Upon returning from a 6-month tour in Afghanistan, he was highly decorated and received numerous awards and commendations for his expertise and service. The bar he set for himself was always high. Fortunately, during his Navy days, technology in the form of email provided a way to connect with a lovely Loyalton lady with whom he fell deeply in love. In 2004, 2 months shy of his 21st birthday, he married Cierra, his true soulmate. 4 years later, Daniel was honorably discharged from the Navy. By the age of 25, he worked in juvenile detention for a period of time, and through a series of events was recruited to the Hoquiam Police Department. Consequently, he spent 6 years working as a field training officer, member of the SWAT, bike patrol, and crisis response, terms which led to receiving crisis response teams, which led to receiving the Masonic Award for Best Officer of the Year. In 2014, Daniel transferred to Pierce County Sheriff's Department, and in 2015 joined the Mountain Detachment. Daniel was born with a natural love for life and people. He innately knew the Christian principles of our existence, which was evident in everything he did. He was smart, really smart, quick-witted, and never at a loss for words. He enjoyed music, was expert in all things technological, a devoted sports fan, a self-proclaimed do-it-yourself home renovation extraordinaire, and at some point in life may have been a political force because of his passion. He was passionate in keeping with our Constitution and the will of the people. His being a driven CrossFit competitor and training coach was enthusiastically mentioned in as many conversations as possible. And I know that was a big thing here in Washington for him. The members of CrossFit Yum were amongst his best friends. With all his awards and accomplishment, Daniel's proudest achievement was in having married Cierra and helping to produce 3 beautiful sons, Tytus, Tate, and Traxton. Life was meaningful to Daniel. He spent every moment possible in surrendering himself to the joys of participating in family life. He tucked his boys in for bed every night and read to them before he left for work. He loved daily wrestling matches, tactical Nerf wars, building Legos, and playing video games with them. Daniel and Cierra are soulmates. Life for the McCartney family has been, is, and will continue to be meaningful and fulfilling because of the love and high standards they held for each other and their family. Daniel died in the line of duty on January 8th, 2018, shortly after he turned 34. He lived a lot of life in a very short time. He was a fearless officer who was not afraid to live life to the fullest. His sacrifice has inadvertently benefited 2 youngsters who now will have opportunities to grow in loving families. Daniel will be well pleased.
Pastor Doug Cotton from Harbor City Church in Aberdeen is here today to do a scripture reading and some remarks about Daniel.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Cotton, and I had the privilege of being Daniel and Cierra's pastor for 6 years while they lived in Grace Harbor. There's a verse in Nehemiah 3, verse 16, that mentions a place called the House of Heroes. It's the only place mentioned in Scripture. Some commentaries say it could have been a hall of fame for a museum for the brave warriors who fought battles for God and won. Could have had Goliath's sword in there and a plaque dedicated to King David. Could have had some other plaques, pieces of armor, many other swords and bows and arrows, and dedicated to warriors and battle maidens in the history of Israel. The point I'm trying to make is this. Even Israel, who was famous for the God they served, had heroes whom God used. I believe Daniel was one of God's modern-day heroes. A hero is defined as one who has the qualities of being strong, courageous, loyal, and brave. And you become a hero when you do something with every ounce of your heart, every ounce of your soul, and your body, and those efforts make a positive difference for someone else. Let me say that again. You become a hero when you do something with every ounce of your heart, every ounce of your soul and body, and those efforts make a difference for someone else. To be a law officer, husband, and father, you need to be a great warrior. And those who succeed at it are heroes. Dan was one of those people. I was thinking, what would Daniel tell us about heroes and how we might become one like him? And this is what I think he would say. Number one, he would tell us, today, heroes are often developed in obscurity, places like out at sea, in the Navy, where you're being trained and no one but a few men on your ship know your name, or places like Aberdeen, Hoquiam, Montesano, and Yelm, where most people would never know your name or even know what you're doing or the good works you're doing. But God is preparing you for greatness. The second thing I believe he would tell us is heroes are made by not quitting when things get hard. The more difficult something was, the more Dan liked it. He loved challenges. He was an overcomer when it came to obstacles. He was anything but a quitter. Thirdly, I believe Dan would tell us never underestimate the power of one totally dedicated life. Dan gave everything to his job, his marriage, and his God. He was 100% in everything he did. Fourth, I believe Dan would tell us you can get a lot more done if you don't care who gets the credit. Dan was not in it for the glory. He just wanted to make people better. Lastly, I believe Daniel learned from his hero, Jesus, to live for a greater purpose than himself. See, the number one purpose for Jesus is people. And Dan's number one purpose, because he wanted to be like his hero, was to love people, even if it meant dying for them. Dan's hero, Jesus, paid the ultimate sacrifice. He suffered on a cross for all of us so that we might live. Heroes never forget their purpose. They put their lives at risk and are willing to lay them down so that you and I can live. I believe, as we have come here today to honor a hero, the greatest act that we can do on his behalf is become the hero that God created you and I to be. It is natural for all of us to underestimate our value and our potential. Dan would tell us, God made you for greatness. He would tell all of us to make our lives count for a purpose beyond ourselves. Today, you and I are surrounded with men and women who are making a difference, and they're doing it with all of their heart, with all of their soul, with all of their might. They're doing it with great sacrifice and great expense, but they're making a positive contribution to the lives of those around them. If you want to honor Dan and the life that he lived, then become the hero that God called you to be. I think that's what Dan would have wanted for his life to speak. And if there was a Hall of the Heroes in Washington State, I think Dan's name would be there, along with his shield. And let me just say this. To the McCartney and Gardner families, I'm so sorry for your loss, but I believe Dan's legacy will live on for generations to come. And I love you all very much. Thank you.
I would like to call up a friend of Daniel's, Chief Petty Officer Drew Senery, United States Navy. Good afternoon. This is really a tremendous event. Seeing all this fine men and women that serve in law enforcement, first responders. I'd personally like to thank you for everything that you do. I'll take a brief moment to tell you a little something about me. I have 2 small children. I've been in the Navy 15 years, and I met Daniel and we became good friends here in Washington State. The Navy moved me away as duty calls, and Daniel never had a chance to meet my 2 young children, so that hurts a little bit. I'm going to embarrass my wife for a brief moment. But a few moments ago, right before I knew I was going to speak, my little boy said, "Daddy, I got to go potty." And as my wife Rose looked at me in panic, I didn't panic at all because I knew I had a few thousand men and women here that I trust to take my son to the bathroom. So thank you for that. I first met Daniel in 2004. I take that back, it was 2003. I had just finished boot camp and reported to A school, and Daniel had been there a few months before me, so he was a little more acquainted with surrounding and things like that. So he was a watch team leader, and he kind of saw that I had deer in the headlights look, and he approached me and put me at ease and told me what I needed to do and where to go, and it was very comforting. And I'm sure that as the men and women of law enforcement and Daniel continued to do when he served, he was that friendly face when help was needed. Lucky for me, my first duty station was on USS Abraham Lincoln, where I met up with Daniel, who had been there a few months before me. So he again, I think he saw me and was really happy that I was there, because we quickly formed a friendship. And it wasn't long after that I met Cierra, who would soon be the love of his life. I can tell you that Daniel spoke of Cierra often, and I distinctly remember in my head, like I hear Daniel's voice saying her name.
Daniel and I shared a bond. It was a fellowship because we both followed God. And we leaned on each other because, if some of you may know, a Navy life can be pretty challenging. You're surrounded by people from all different backgrounds, different morals, and you come together for a common goal. And when you're trying to walk a fine line as a Christian, you know, people are swearing around you, using cuss words, and that, as a Christian, you try to shy away from that. Additionally, they're watching movies that have risky plots and all that. And Daniel, he was a teacher to me because he would point out the things that I was exposing myself to that were just chipping away at my faith. And I thank him for that. And as I've come back here to visit the family and meet his young boys, and for them to meet my sons, they're the ones thanking me for being his buddy, being his friend. Because together, when we were on Liberty, instead of hitting bars and having drinks, unloading and relaxing from the stresses of being underway, instead we went on tours and in the community and saw the sights and took pictures. And I love him for that. Thank you. That's all I had.
As I mentioned earlier, Chief Jeff Myers from Hoquiam Police Department is here with his officers. He is going to come up and give remarks and comments about Daniel McCartney.
Good afternoon. If there was a manual for sheriffs and police chiefs, it would say, I hope you never have to do this. But here we are, so I'd ask you to bear with me. Daniel McCartney started his career as a peace officer in Washington State with the Hoquiam Police Department on April 1st, 2009. I gave him the choice of another date, but starting on April Fool's Day didn't seem to bother him in the least. There's a serious photo of Daniel with a stern face taken soon after we changed uniforms from light blue to dark blue. And I think Daniel would want us to see him that way, all serious and all business. But we know better. For those that knew him, and for all of us at Hoquiam PD, we see Daniel with the ear-to-ear infectious smile and sparkle in his crystal blue eyes. With a shock of red locks and the occasional extra spiked hairdo when he thought I wasn't looking, Daniel quickly became a member of our family at HPD. With only 18 sworn officers in our department, your patrol squad becomes your family away from home, 12 hours a day, 3 days on, 3 days off, week after week, and month after month. Daniel and his family lived in a small neighborhood in Montesano, surrounded by other Hoquiam officers, as well as peace officers from around the harbor. We used to call it the Hoquiam East Precinct. Daniel was part of our small pond. During his time at HPD, Daniel was always going 110%. He was a patrol officer who never sat still. He quickly aspired to additional collateral duties, including bike patrol, field training officer, and he was a member of the Aberdeen Regional Crisis Response Team, and he was our computer network administrator, although I think that last task was somewhat by default due to his wicked computer skills. Daniel earned the nickname of Danimal because he was a red-haired bulldog who kept digging and digging. He was a part of the team, but he often liked to be in the lead. Daniel's drive and competitive nature, sometimes even seemed cocky at times, really drove everyone else in the department to step up, to do better. We sometimes called him Dan the Man. Daniel also embraced his role as a guardian of our community, a role model. He treated others with respect even when he didn't have to. Sergeant Mitchell, one of his squad sergeants, related Daniel's dismay when he once lost his temper with a suspect and swore at the suspect. To the rest of the squad, the suspect was being a jerk and figured he probably had it coming. But to Daniel, he was disappointed in himself because that's just not how he treated other people. Daniel participated with Shop with the Cop. He read books to kids at the library. He taught bike safety at the annual Central Elementary Bike Rodeo. And he visited with citizens at National Night Out. These assignments he took with the same zeal and dedication as he did his patrol duties. Dan the Man. Daniel drove himself to make a big ripple in a small pond every day. Liz Yates of Consistent Cups Espresso first met Daniel when he worked briefly at Staples. I'm assuming he was one of the geek squad there, with those wicked computer skills. Liz was opening her business and had some menus printed. Daniel promised to come by, and he actually did. After Daniel started at HPD, he came by every day to get his espresso in Aberdeen on his way into work, or to pick up one for his wife Cierra on his way home. Liz even remembers their drinks to this day. When Liz opened her second location in Hoquiam, Daniel was even more excited than she was. With a loud whoop, yeah! At the window, Daniel was there 6 minutes after she opened her new location to graduate Liz, and I'm figuring probably order his coffee for the day. Over the years, they shared family stories, have children of the same age, new kids on the way, and the birth of little ones to each of their families. Daniel just didn't talk about his love for his wife and his boys. He showed it every single day, one cup of coffee at a time. Liz also had the comfort of knowing Daniel kept an extra close eye on the coffee stand after hours, because any sort of burglary would have created a serious crimp in his coffee habit. Even after Daniel transferred to Pierce County Sheriff's Office a little over 3 years ago and moved to Yelm, he still kept in touch with his friends at HPD, and he stopped in for the occasional espresso. The phone call came in the middle of the night. Pierce County Sheriff's deputy was in a shooting. The deputy is in surgery. The deputy is Daniel. Then the second phone call came. Daniel didn't make it. All of our hearts stopped. We were devastated. When Liz heard of the news of a deputy killed in the line of duty in Pierce County, it was sad. So far away in another place, in another pond. But when she learned that deputy was Daniel, her heart stopped. She was devastated. Over the past week, our community came together by the hundreds to honor Daniel and his family. This was repeated all over the region, from Pierce County to Yelm CrossFit. Cards and flowers, tears and hugs, stories and remembrances. Because Daniel McCartney, son, brother, husband, father, and peace officer, made so many big ripples in so many ponds. If you look around you right now, you'll see all of Daniel McCartney's small ponds have come together here today to honor his life. As we go forward, just as our department has honored the family of Officer Donald Burke, killed in the line of duty in Hoquiam in 1980, whose daughter Kelly is here today to pay her respects to Daniel, Cierra and the boys will forever be a part of the Hoquiam PD family. No matter what years pass, the sacrifice Daniel has made as a peace officer to lay down his life in the protection of his fellow citizen will not be forgotten. But as time moves on and the shock of that night fades in the collective memory of society, I beg all of us to please remember that the sacrifice was made not just by Daniel, but the sacrifice continues every single day as Cierra and their 3 little boys, Tytus, Tate, and Traxton, are forced to live without him. Perhaps no one can change the whole world, but I think Daniel understood he could make a big ripple in a small pond. Whether we realize it or not, all those small ponds are connected to each other, as evidenced by each of you here today. I think Daniel's legacy would challenge us to go forward in our lives and to be that big ripple.
night, trying to hide the pain. I'm going to the place where love and feeling good don't ever cost a thing. And the pain you feel's a different kind of pain. I'm going home, back to the place where I belong, and where your love has always been enough for me. I'm not running from, no, I think you got me all wrong. I don't regret this life I chose for me. But these places and these faces are getting old, so I'm going home. I'm going home. The miles are getting longer, it seems. The closer I get to you. I've not always been the best man, a friend for you, but your love remains true. And I don't know why you always seem to give me another try. So I'm going home, back to the place where I belong, and where your love has always been enough for me. I'm not running from, no, I think you got me all wrong. I don't regret this life I chose for me. But these places and these faces are getting old. Be careful what you wish for, 'cause you just might get it all. You just might get it all, and then some you don't want. Be careful what you wish for, 'cause you just might get it all. You just might get it all, yeah. I'm going home, back to the place where I belong, and where your love has always been enough for me. I'm not running from, no, I think you got me all wrong. I don't regret this life I chose for me. But these places and these faces are getting old. I said these places and these faces are getting old, so I'm going home. I'm going home.
Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people, making music for the people. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Everywhere we go. Music for the people, making music for the people. I wanna magnify your light. I wanna reflect the sun. Cut like precious diamonds, with colors by the millions. This is the only world we know, and for now this rental's our home. If we gon' be a reflection, gotta make this third rock glow. Just so you know.
Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people to illuminate the show. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people, making music for the people. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people to illuminate the show. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people, Jesus, music for the people.
lights in the city might be more than pretty. That freaky shine might be more than meets the eye. Anytime you see the sparkle in the dark, you might look deeper. It might be more than simply theater. Yo, that smile might be joy that's connected to the spirit. The spirit might be contagious. If you dare come near it. I remember, can't forget, peace that you can't second guess. Sparkle as the light reflects, we write and pay it forward checks.
Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people to illuminate the show. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people, making music for the people. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people to illuminate the show. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people, Jesus, music for the people.
Light shine bright, light shine bright. Light shine bright, light shine bright.
People to illuminate the show. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people, making music for the people. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people to illuminate the show. Light shine bright everywhere we go. Music for the people, Jesus, music for the people.
Light shine bright, light shine bright.
Everywhere we go, everywhere we go.
Everywhere we go. Light shine bright, light shine bright.
Everywhere we go, everywhere we go.
Everywhere we go. Light shine bright, everywhere we go. Light shine bright, everywhere we go. Everywhere we go. Music for the people, making music for the people.
Close my eyes and think of you. Go to sleep and dream of you. We don't get to be here long. I gave you the best of me, loved you more than anything, but we don't get to be here long. We don't get to be here long. And though my heart may be in pieces, my eyes are still set on you. And though I can't keep it together, I know that you want me to. Oh, I'm swimming in the grief, and there's no anchor that could hold me down. And I don't want any relief, 'cause I don't want to let you go right now. Close my eyes and think of you. Go to sleep and dream of you. We don't get to be here long. We don't get to be here. I gave you the best of me, love you more than anything, but we don't get to be here long. Oh, your moans.
Raindrops rolling off my brim. Street lights got the pavement glistening. Touchdown, I fall into your arms, right where I belong. Your everlasting arms. And where would I be without you? I'll be packing my bags when I need to stay. I'll be chasing every breeze that blows my way. I'll be building my watch it fade away. It's true, that's me without you. Ooh, 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 ooh. That's me without you. Ooh, 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 ooh. That's me without you. Ooh, 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 ooh. Don't know where I'd be without you. Flashback, stepping through the scene. There's you, and there's a very different me. Touchdown, you had me at believe. You had me at believe you did. And where would I be without you? Without you, I'd be packing my bags when I need to stay. I'd be chasing every breeze that blows my way. I'd be building my kingdom just to watch it fade away. It's true, that's me without you. Ooh, 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 ooh. That's me without you. Ooh, 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 ooh. That's me without you. Ooh, 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 ooh. Don't know where I'd be without you.
Partner of Deputy McCartney, longtime Mountain Detachment Deputy. Deputy Luke Baker will be given a remembrance. Come up, please.
I had the honor of working with Dan throughout his time with the department and as his patrol partner in the night in the Mountain Detachment. Dan always treated me like his older brother, and I always treated him like my little red-headed brother. We teased each other like brothers do. At times we fought like brothers do, but mostly we shared our love of catching bad guys with our Mountain Detachment team. It has been said that Dan was the kind of guy you'd want responding to your home if you or your loved one was having a bad day. But it was also true about Dan that he was the kind of partner you wanted when going to calls. Working at night in the Mountain Detachment, or what we jokingly call the law south of Muck Creek, takes a responsible, special type of person, as our backup is many miles and minutes away. Dan showed unwavering courage, showed care and compassion to the weak and hurting. Bad guys knew Dan, and he knew them. There was a mutual respect and a professional rapport. You didn't want to be on his radar screen, as he enjoyed hunting and finding wanted subjects, stolen cars, and running interference on drug houses. I don't remember Dan ever getting a complaint. Several months ago, Dan and I were at a call dealing with a young man, a repeat customer, and an anti-cop type, who was swearing at us and not taking any responsibility for his part in a domestic dispute. I was, let's say, verbally confronting the young man about his behavior and lifestyle choices. Dan, like a good partner should do, got in between us and moved me away. I chewed Dan out at the time, and halfway through my rant, Dan looked at me through watery eyes and said, "It's me, it's me." I could tell that I had hurt his feelings, and I became quiet. He was right, and I was wrong. This is the kind of guy and partner he was, always wanting a peaceful solution and willing to stand up and to protect. Health and fitness was Dan. Dan was super strong and speedy guy. One day, Dan and I went to arrest someone who had assaulted his girlfriend. The subject was passed out on a bed and was woken up by us telling him that he was under arrest. The guy completely flipped out and started fighting us. I grabbed one arm and jumped on him while Dan did the same with the other arm. Dan was having no problems controlling his arm, but I could not leverage the subject's arm into a handcuffing position and continued to struggle. Dan, with one hand, held his arm, reached over, grabbed the other arm from me, and pulled both arms together and calmly said, "I got him, Luke. Go ahead and let go and cuff him." We talked about coaching and our glory years of competitive sports. Dan would see me eating junk food from the Mountain Detachment snack bar and would tell me about it. I would say, "Shut up, Dan, it tastes good." Dan would show us selfie videos of him working out at the CrossFit gym. And even though it was impressive, I would tease him about making such videos. He was proud of his workouts and always spoke highly about the people at his gym. I was fortunate enough to speak with an organ donor representative the night following Dan's passing. The representative was explaining how they were able to utilize Dan's well-kept, junk food-free organs to provide extension and quality of life to many recipients, including wounded soldiers. What an awesome gift. Dan loved Steven Crowder, a conservative comedian, and the podcast Louder with Crowder. Dan would send us links of the podcast to his Mountain Detachment partners, and we commonly did roadside visits and laughed about the episodes. Dan was all about his home life with his wife and 3 boys. Dan talked about his boys as a proud father. Dan would share stories about taking them to the gym with him, playing sports, going on bike rides, or caring for the wild cats that showed up at their house one day. Dan was always doing remodeling projects, and from what I saw was quite the handyman, to include a home visit to help out the not-so-handy Deputy Jeff Tytus. The McCartney family are part of a small church in Yelm. It gives me great comfort to know that Dan was a Christian believer and that he is in heaven with a lot of other good company. Dan believed in the power of prayer and would welcome all of your prayers for his family and our department. My pastor and I were talking the other night about good and evil in this world. We see so much evil and the worst of what people are capable of doing to each other in this job. Being part of this memorial reminds me of how much good and caring there is in this world. When you see amongst the thousands of people an elderly couple standing at attention, saluting and shaking to hold still while the procession passes, and a young child waving while holding an American flag, you're reminded of how many good people there really are. Dan approached life the same way he approached the job. He was 100% all in. One day, Dan and I went to arrest a subject with a warrant. The subject saw us and immediately started running on foot, and we chased him. He was able to put a cluster of patch of vine maple trees between us, and as we ran, I, being the wiser older deputy, took the longer route around the trees as Dan started running through them. Dan was smashed in the face and clotheslined by one of the branches, which later turned into a black eye for him. Being that bigger brother, I laughed at Dan, left him there, and continued chasing the bad guy. As I was now closing the gap and about ready to make contact, I then saw the flash of Dan and a good form tackle of the subject. Dan had outran me. Dan has once again outran me to his heavenly home, and as I know, he had looked up to several senior patrol deputies. We all now look up to him in heaven. One last thing. There's a new canine on our department who will be hitting the streets soon. I met with Dan's boys several days ago, and they decided that his name should be Dan. So I'm putting all bad guys in Pierce County on notice. Dan is still coming for you, as am I, as is every other person on this department, because that is what we do. Thank you.
I would like to call up the next 2 speakers together. Both are family friends of the McCartney family. Christian Gidloff and Officer Sean Malone from the Olympia Police Department. Will you please come up?
My name is Chris Skidloff. Dan was my best friend. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Cierra, the boys, for allowing me to speak. It's truly an honor. In addition, I'd like to thank all the police officers, fire department, first responders, CrossFit Yelm, members of the community. This is ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. It's amazing. Dan was my best friend. I looked at him like family. Loved the guy. He set such a standard and a presence with everything that he did. He went as hard as he could at everything, always 110%. I had a speech, I'm not really going to use this. Everything he did, he went as hard as he could, and it pushed me to go as hard as I could, made me a better athlete, made everybody around him a better athlete, and just a better person. Seeing how he was able to operate day in and day out, I looked at him like he was a superhero. I didn't understand how somebody could do as much as he could in a day and just maintain. He would make time for his family. He would go to work. He would coach. He'd work out. He would come check at my house, make sure I was okay. We'd stay up all night playing video games. Right over there, there's game Destiny 2. I can't tell you how many moons and planets we went and liberated the people. I mean, I'm not joking, it wasn't a joke.
It's not a joke.
No. But he was absolutely incredible. To work out with him, it was just awe-inspiring. I remember the first time I saw him in the gym, I thought, awesome, there's another red-headed guy in here. This is what I need. And together, one of the members from CrossFit Yelm, our former member, Mark, is called, he said, we're red-headed strong. And it's the truth. I remember working out with him, and 9 times out of 10, that guy would destroy me in every workout that we would do. Either double the amount of reps I would do or just beat me by minutes. But I remember one time I actually beat him, and I was so excited, and I'm sitting there kind of throwing it back in his face, and he told me, he's like, bro, you gotta remember, I got a broken neck right now. I was like, yeah, okay. But after he finished got his surgery and fixed his broken neck, I remember he came back, and it was only a few months after he did this workout called Fran, which, if you don't know it, it's 21 thrusters, 21 pull-ups, 15 thrusters, 15 pull-ups, 9 thrusters, 9 pull-ups. And he did that in 2 minutes and 51 seconds. And that right there is, in the CrossFit community, that's world-class status. And that's a few months after neck surgery. And what I'm getting at with that is, that was his dedication. That's how hard he pushed himself. There was nothing that he could not achieve. And even after he did that, he sent me a message and he said, bro, I could have gone way faster. I was taking it easy. I thought, you were absolutely ridiculous. It took me 6 minutes to do that. Yeah, I love him. Dan, I love you. I miss you. You're gonna always be alive in my heart. Thank you.
Wow, I'll try to follow that. A lot of good words here for Daniel today. Every one ring true. I didn't know how I was going to be up here, so I wrote some stuff down. My name is Sean Malone. My wife Annie and I own CrossFit Yelm. I've been given the honor to speak on behalf of Daniel's CrossFit Yelm and CrossFit family. Daniel was an athlete and a coach at our gym. The 3 short years that he was there, he made such an impact that I can't put it in words.
As many of you already know and have heard, that Daniel was a truly amazing person. If you find yourself nodding your head at some of these comments, that means you knew Daniel and you loved him. You couldn't help but. Daniel was such an example to so many people. He was a great husband, great father, an athlete, a mentor, and a coach. And biggest of all, he was a friend. He touched so many lives in a positive way. I made the comment, it's probably been seen all over the world now, but Daniel was an individual that if you called 911, you had hoped he showed up. That's the kind of guy that he was. But these are just not my words that I'm up here talking. These are echoed by many people. I had some individuals from our gym provide me with some input about their thoughts of Daniel. This is what my wife wrote, and if I get it wrong, I'm in trouble. My name is Annie Malone. It's not me, it's my wife. My husband is Officer Sean Malone. That's me. Yeah, Sean Malone is an officer, police officer with Olympia. He's been there for a long time. Driving home last night, I spoke to him about who would be there if you were gone. Many fears flood you when you live as a law enforcement officer's wife. I would love to share Daniel with you because beyond his badge, there is a hero. Here we go, ... Like two little boys giggling and playing every day, it's about enjoying each other's company and spending time sharing stories and laughing. Every day you would hear my two gingers, affectionately, I lost my place. Coaching one another, challenging each other to be better, smiling, laughing, and improving because they believed in each other. Not many times did you see one without the other. That's our coaches bonding and suffering through another day at CrossFit. Daniel and Christian. They would finish up and stand in the back of the gym sharing YouTube videos laughing. They would watch CrossFit fail videos. Many of you probably have seen those. Let's see, I would get an Instagram from Daniel. It was always interesting seeing what he would send me each day. Every day, Daniel had a goal, whether it would be to video his handstands, or his muscle ups, or his lifts, a lot of videos. He would video them because he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to do them after his surgery. But he would go through his skill work, his snatch movement was his favorite. Let's just say every day he had a plan, and he would always get one of us to do it with him. Oh yeah, let's not talk about physical therapy. I'd ask him, does your physical therapist know? He would always say, well, of course. And when he did finally get cleared for full strength and movement, he was still very good at holding the throttle back and taking just small steps. You could hear it in his voice through how he enjoyed every PR, even the small ones. For those of you who don't know what PR, it's a personal record. The last month, Daniel was setting a lot of those personal records. Let's talk about that smile. Well, it was always there. It never left. You know, it's the smile that made you feel like you were doing a great job. Daniel's favorite words, keep moving, they helped us all. He cared about everyone and invested his time in improving not only himself, but always giving others what they needed, which is rare in people today. He made you want to be a better person, not just at CrossFit, but at life. He would often bring his boys to the gym a few times a week. They became a regular presence, and you would look over and see them doing handstands on the wall, just wanting to do what their dad did. I'm going to miss watching him put Tate on the jerk blocks so he could watch his dad lift. Those are weightlifting blocks that, anyway. It was inspiring. Daniel was amazing. His love poured out of him for his family. We had just spoke about his anniversary and that Cierra had done her first CrossFit workout with him. He said, she's coming around. With, of course, that smile. He loved her with his whole heart. She was his world, and he knew it. I ask God a lot now, not why, but show me your ways so that we understand. Daniel loved the Lord, and he trusted him, enough that he was sharing him with us in the gym. The Lord is with me, I am not afraid. What can mortal men do to me? Psalms 118:6. I am comforted knowing that Daniel is with his eternal Father in heaven. It brings me relief, but it doesn't make my heart hurt any less. I feel selfish for wanting him here with us. He would have preferred to be here fighting crime and being a superhero to 3 little boys. But it's never our plan, and I know it. I'm just grateful that the Lord, our God, put Daniel in my path and brought him into our lives. I'm better for knowing Daniel. So thank you, Cierra, for sharing him with me and allowing us to be part of your family. I love you, and we love your family. Oops. One last thing. When you look at this stage and you see parts of his life, I want you to take away a few things. Strength. Daniel had a 455-pound deadlift. He swung a 90-pound kettlebell, jumped 50 inches high, loved to do double unders with the jump rope. He truly is a superhero to his family, to this world, and now in heaven watching over us. Daniel, you will be missed, but we will never forget your sacrifice. Another member wrote, 2 things stood out about Daniel as a CrossFit coach. The first was how friendly and welcome he was. He'd always greet you with a big smile and make you feel glad to be there because he seemed glad to be there. He always was willing to help, no matter your level of fitness, skill, or experience. He made everyone feel welcome, and everyone mattered to him. He was not only your coach, he was your friend. The other thing that stood out about Daniel was the way he would challenge you to set your goals high. Even if you didn't think those goals were possible, he made you feel like he believed in you, and he encouraged you to be just a little bit better. And if, as sometimes happens, you couldn't accomplish your goal that day, he made you feel that that was okay, because he still believed in you. With a little more practice, some helpful advice, and even more encouragement, you'd eventually reach that goal. Although I knew Daniel only through CrossFit, what I learned from him will make me more than a better athlete. It will make me a better person as I try to honor the memory of him and his brave sacrifice. We can all honor Daniel and follow his example by always greeting others with a smile and by striving to be just a little bit better in everything we do each and every day. Thank you, Daniel, for being our coach, our friend, and our hero. Another member wrote, I was once asked by a friend of mine, who are you? I responded that I'm a police officer. He responded, "No, that's your job. Who are you?" And I didn't have an answer. He said, "First, you are a child of God, you are a husband, you are a father, you are a son and a friend, and then you are a police officer." Daniel had it right. And he proved it every day. He was a child of God, a good husband, a good father, a true man, and a true warrior. Daniel had no idea the impact he had on my life. He encouraged me to be a better man and to show to the world that I am first a child of God. I am blessed to have been part of his life. These sentiments that I've just read could easily be echoed by everyone that knew Daniel. I bet many of you are echoing those same sentiments right now and have similar thoughts and feelings. This world clearly lost a shining light in Daniel. But heaven gained a powerful warrior and a true superhero.
Our benediction today will be given by Leslie Montgomery, Chaplain, Tacoma Police Department.
As a law enforcement chaplain, I have a unique vantage point when it comes to viewing the thin blue line. I'm so grateful for the privilege to work alongside our police officers and walk alongside them and their families, and at times, in what can be a heartbreaking work. This job affords me a privilege of living life, and as today shows us, death, among some of the best and bravest men and women I know. Daily, I bear witness to their heroism, their honor, their humanity, their hurt, and their hope. In all these things, words simply fall short. Over the past 10 days, I've had the privilege of walking alongside the McCartney family. And me and several of their liaison officers have crammed a lot of life into these past 10 days. There have been moments that have been hard and moments that have been heartbreaking. I've had difficult decisions and big conversations with very little hearts. Yet, in the midst of a tremendous tragedy, I have watched the McCartney family do what they do best: love one another. Despite the sadness, we have shared plenty of laughs and silliness too. In fact, my speech is not the clearest today because I got shot in the mouth by a Nerf dart during one of the tactical Nerf wars that were earlier mentioned. But for all the adventures and all of the hardships, there have also been many places this week where we have stood in silence, in pain, and in each of those moments, Cierra would tell you this, that even in the midst of an unbearable tragedy, they have seen God's faithfulness again and again. At this time in the service, we traditionally offer a closing prayer. But there is nothing about today or the days that come that are a closing for the McCartney family. This is only the beginning of their journey without their husband, without their dad, their brother, son, and friend. With that in mind, will you join me as we pray? Thank you, God, for the life of Daniel, and thank you for the life he and Cierra created together. We thank you that there are 3 little boys in this room who trust you because their daddy taught them how to, and their mommy continues to look to you every day. In Psalm 146, your word says that the Lord watches over those who journey with him. He supports the widow and the fatherless. And today, God, we ask that you would do that. Would you keep your promise? Journey with them, uphold them, support them. Be present with them, be present with us. And when it's hard to see you, may we look to one another and recognize you in the hands and hearts of all of those around us. In all these things, we trust and love you, Jesus. Amen.
You're watching live the memorial service for Pierce County Deputy Daniel McCartney. We're about to enter the beginning of the closing ceremony portions of today's event. Lieutenant Robert Getz from the Everett Police Department, also behind the Badge Foundation. Tell us what's going to happen next.
So for about the next 20 minutes or so in the closing ceremonies, all the honor guards are now re-entering the venue to be posted as part of the ceremony. Once all the honor guards are posted, there'll be a 21 bell ceremony, which is in lieu of a 21 gun ceremony. Because of the inside venue, obviously we're not going to do a 21 gun salute. The bells signify that. There'll be a flag folding detail that comes in that will fold the flag, and which will be presented to his wife. Once the flag folding is done, taps will sound. We'll have a final radio call, and then the family will leave the venue. Once the family leaves the venue, then the honor guards will also retreat, and the ceremony will be over.
We were watching the video, and you said that's usually the part of these ceremonies that you had the hardest time with when you look at sort of the pictures of their life.
Over the years that I have been involved with honor guards and behind the Badge Foundation, it's become very hard for me to watch that. I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older and understand just how crushing it would be. What I'm always impressed with, however, is in pictures learning about the family.
Mm. He had a beautiful family.
Amazing family.
What a nice blend the ceremony was. We heard from Sheriff Paul Pastor, said Dan was not drawn to a job. For him, being a cop was a calling. His pastor, Doug Cotton, said Dan wasn't interested in getting the credit in life. He just wanted to make those around him better. And so touching to hear from Chief Petty Officer Drew Senery. On leave in the Navy, we didn't hit the bars and drink. We went on tours and held each other accountable, and I love him for that. Really says a lot about who this man was.
Let's listen in for a bit.
Ready, up. Hands, please. Forward, punch.
Flag detail.
Flag detail. Ready, post. Present. On. Arm.
the audience please rise? Honor Guard, uniformed personnel, present. Hook!
Unit 484. Unit 484. 44. No, sir. Out of service. Gone, but not forgotten.
Retire the colors.
Mark time. Mark. Ready? Halt. Hugger. Left. Feet.
Honor Guard, uniformed personnel, present. Hook! Order! Hook!
Color. Ready? Retreat. Color guard. Right. Face.
uniformed personnel, present, hook!
We've been watching the memorial service for Deputy Daniel McCartney, who was killed on January 8th while responding to a home invasion in Frederickson. What a service honoring him. So many people, some 5,000 gathering at Olson Auditorium, 3,500 officers, their family members, his CrossFit family from Yelm gathering there at Olson Auditorium. The sheriff from Pierce County said so much as he presented the flag to the wife of Deputy McCartney. He said this, he said, officers do what they do without stopping to consider who you are or why you asked. This is the oath that they take. This is who Daniel McCartney was. Something to think about as we look at that room full of officers. His brother-in-law, Daniel Gardner, said this, that Daniel understood the relationship between good and evil, recognizing the difference, and he wanted to make a difference, and that's exactly what he did.
And I feel like we really got to know Deputy McCartney better. We heard from his partner with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, Deputy Luke Baker, talking about how they kidded together, how they just had a great time catching bad guys together. And, you know, we talked about his involvement in CrossFit, and I didn't have any idea until today. Here was a guy that could lift 450 pounds off the ground and actually didn't mind chasing bad guys and tackling them. I mean, this is the kind of guy that everybody would want to have responding to your house if you called 911. And I think we also got a really good feel for the spirituality of this man.
Deep sense of faith.
Deep sense of faith. And commitment in every area of his life. And we talked about that, you know, that CrossFit strength tempered with those beautiful pictures of the tenderness that he showed his little boys. What an amazing combination of traits that this man had.
It was so wonderful what his brother-in-law said. He said, and I'm quoting as close as I can, he said, if Daniel were here today, he would say to all of you, it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from, or what you've done, he would tell you that if you offer forgiveness and come to God, that is the way, right? Despite what has happened to him, that he is gone, that his family's left alone, that's how close he was to God, that he would forgive.
Yeah. It's an impressive show of support from law enforcement throughout the region and even up into Canada. But now, I mean, we have to be honest that the hard part begins for his wife Cierra and sons Tytus and Tate and Traxton, that, you know, this is the first day for the rest of their lives that they won't have their husband and dad. And that's where Behind the Badge Foundation and other support groups come in. Let's bring back our guest today, Robert Getz from Everett Police Department, Behind the Badge. This is where kind of the rubber meets the road for this family, isn't it?
It is, but I just want to say something here, and that is that Deputy McCartney and his family and his coworkers and his friends are truly the shining star of our profession. A shining star that made the ultimate sacrifice. And for his family and his friends, I will tell you that behind the badge will be there for you and to help you and comfort you along the way. That Pierce County deputies and the community at large will be there for you, and I feel honored to be part of this memorial service and honored to know that Deputy McCartney and his family were part of this profession.
I hope that officers across our region today feel that we honor them, that we appreciate the work they do, that they know we don't take them for granted. And I hope that McCartney's family, Deputy McCartney's family, feels how much we appreciate his sacrifice.
On behalf of the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, we would like to express our sincerest appreciation for the support you have shown for Deputy McCartney and his family. In this next sequence, we would ask for your patience while Daniel's family is assisted by the collective honor guards in bestowing the final honors. During that time, you, the members of the audience, are respectfully asked to remain in the auditorium. Thank you.
So, Lieutenant, explain what's happening right now.
So the family's going to have an opportunity to prepare themselves to leave the venue, to take Deputy McCartney to his final resting place. And out of respect for the family, the audience is just being asked to stay in place. This will probably take another 20 minutes or so. And so it just makes it easier for the family to get through to where they need to be and to really put a closure on a day that is certainly probably one of the longest days of their lives.
Certainly a reminder of the sacrifices our officers make every day. He was 34 years old, left his home in the morning, said goodbye to his family and his 3 little kids, and did not come home that night. We should all, every day, if you see an officer, say thank you for the work that you do. Just incredible.
I feel like we have a new appreciation. You know, we see this is really what it means to commit yourself as a law enforcement officer, is that these are the days that you hope never happen, but the reality is they do. And even so, these men and women are willing to put on the badge and leave their homes and their families with this in mind. But what a beautiful show of support for this man, Deputy Daniel McCartney, and the work that he did in 34 years. And as someone said, he lived a lot. And he did a lot of good in 34 years.
In Hoquiam, in the Navy, here in Pierce County, and not just a show of support in that room, but to the hundreds, if not thousands of you who came out along the procession route to show your support to his family and brought your children. It's exactly what not just his family needed to see today, but law enforcement officers across the region. I know that they're grateful for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time from this morning through this afternoon, and of course you'll carry on the coverage through tonight.
That's right, and we want to thank Robert Getz, Everett Police, and Behind the Badge Foundation.
Thank you so much.
The work that you do is invaluable, and we're grateful for the work that you do. So thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you both
for being here. Thanks for joining us. And as Joyce mentioned, our coverage continues on King 5 News at 4 o'clock, and we continue to remember and honor the life of Deputy Daniel McCartney. We now return to regularly scheduled programming, and we'll be back in about 45 minutes.